Welcome back to the DorkDate podcast. That's not very robotic. Today we're talking about video games. We're talking about our favorite childhood games growing up.
Yes.
Formative and fun and all that good stuff. So, you want to go first? What's the first game you remember playing ever?
Okay, so the first game I remember playing ever, I don't remember the title of it. It's two games because I don't know which one I played first, but they were on a floppy disk.
Okay. Really retro?
Yeah. And one of them had Donald Duck, and you would go around and collect the alphabet, and you would have to take a shower, I remember, and it was weird. That's all I really remember about it. And then the next one was basically it looked like Fisher-Price. It might have been made by Fisher-Price, those little almost Weeble kind of things, but they're not Weebles. That have the little Lego bottom almost, where you stick them in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They all have
I think those are
hats.
Don't they move when you push the truck around?
I don't know that. But basically you were those guys, and you had to go save more people from burning buildings. You were a firefighter.
Do you think that's why you love board games so much? Because they're basically meeples? 3D meeples?
No.
Threeples?
No.
Yeah. So I had a similar experience for my very first games I remember playing. They were educational games on computer. I played this one jumping frog game. Oh no, it was a Land Before Time game. And you would jump across this river, Frogger style, basically. I had that car game that Matt and Ryan just played recently with the purple car. Different one than they had.
Putt.
Yeah,
I had
Putt.
Freddy.
Same thing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
Yeah.
I had a lot of educational games, and you should see that coming, because my dad every Christmas, if it could be educational, it would be educational.
Which
so
mostly meant the gift
any video game I got educational. He got me a Rayman game, and my whole life I've had this hate for Rayman, because I didn't know he made actual games, because I had Rayman Math. And I didn't get it because I was bad at math, so I never played
so
it.
Fucking sucks. That's funny. Yeah, I was okay with educational games mostly. My parents obviously bought that because they think, oh, if he's going to be playing video games,
Yeah.
Which is interesting, too, because these people grew up in the arcade era and stuff like that. And so I wonder...
But I think it's just more of a, they're in the home now and they're always doing this. Mm-hmm. We got to at least make sure something's
It's positive and beneficial.
Like TV.
Yeah, and occasional television, stuff like that, like PBS. Yeah, totally. And then aside from that, I played lots of the old Windows games. I don't know if you...
pinball and shit?
Yeah, pinball sucked. Fuck pinball.
What? I loved pinball.
It was fine, but I got really bored of it.
Were you just bad at it?
I think it was just boring. I would go as long as I could one, and then it was okay, we're doing the same thing again.
Bad at
It was another game. Shut up. There was another game called Cat and Mouse, and it was a puzzle game, and you were in this maze-like grid, and you were a mouse, and every time you moved, the cat moved, and he tried to find his way towards you. And as the mouse, you could push these pillars out of the way to close exits and stuff for the cat, and open ways for you. And so it took a lot of foresight, and it was the very first puzzle game. And I was very young, but I remember really getting intensely in it. And then other than that, it was a ski game. Ever seen a ski game?
No.
I
don't know either of the last two you're talking about.
Okay, well, basically, you're skiing in a mountain. It's a very, very bad graphics game. And you do jumps and, this point system. I don't think I ever remember doing that. I would just ski, and it was you'd go really fast if you were straight. And then near the end, a Yeti would come out and eat you. And it scared me because it was so fast. And I was I startled every single time. I think that was mostly, my very first experience playing games, because my parents had a computer growing up, in here, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was the first game you played, game that you actually remember,
Donkey Kong Country.
Okay.
And that was when I was 4 and 5.
So that makes me feel as if you're lying a little bit, because your dad didn't just buy educational stuff.
No, I'm not saying just, but when it was for Christmas and stuff, the real video games were given to my brother. And then he would buy me and my sister, not because it wasn't a gendered thing. It was just more Matt was already getting this stuff, and he already showed that he liked this stuff, whereas we were just kind of also playing it,
Secondary.
And he would ask for it, I guess. And then so if we got video games, it would always be Jumpstart. I had a million Jumpstart games.
That's interesting, because your dad never bought Matt educational stuff?
I'm sure he did. But I know that I got educational stuff, and I know my sister got some. We would also for Christmas get workbooks. School workbooks, where it would just be drills of math problems and English stuff. And let me tell you, I'm not better for it, because I'm still bad at math.
You don't 100% know that. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you didn't have an easier time. Doesn't mean you didn't have an easier time doing it when you were growing up.
Yeah.
Because of that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and, like, he would give it to me, and then I was not always made to do it. It was mostly, like, here this is, and obviously you're not going to use it. But then if I would ever, like in the summer, mostly, if it was, like, a slow day, and if it was, like, you're not doing anything today, I would have to have, like, 5 pages done before he got home.
Hey, it's your summer. Here's your complete free time.
Yeah.
And I'm at work, and you're a kid.
And he would get, like, National Geographics, and we would have to, like, read them and do, like, a book report on one of the articles. I only had to do that, like, once or twice, but Jasmine and Matt had to do that more. But he was educational with all of us, but I just remember getting educational video games, whereas Matt, like, knew what to ask for.
Like, I want this. That's interesting that your dad could be steered.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure he got educational stuff, too. Because we had, like, older grades worth of stuff that I could never play, because I was always, like, it was, like, first grade versus like, 6th and 8th grade.
Yeah. So Donkey Kong Country.
Yes.
No, that's fine. That's important. But let's talk about the capacity you played it.
Okay.
Because it's my understanding that you watched your brother play it a lot in the beginning.
Yeah. So most of my less with Donkey Kong. So I really got okay at Donkey Kong around 7. And that's when I was, like, starting to be able to beat levels consistently and, like, actually work my way through the game. Do I think I could have beaten the game then? No. But
Are there certain parts of the game you think that you could just not have done?
I basically stuck to, like, the first world, and I got really good at the first world.
You've told me that before we played it.
And, like, the first world now is, like, just muscle memory to me. It's, like, I almost never die, and if I die, it's just, like...
fucking around?
Yeah, I'm just not paying attention at all. But... yeah, I mostly watched my brother play it and my sister play it at that time because, I mean, they were older than me. My sister is the closest in age to me, and she's 5 years older than me. I think my brother is 7 years older than me.
Oh, huge difference.
And so, yeah, obviously they're going to be a lot better. And it's nice, it's pleasing to look at someone doing well in something.
Yeah, so do you think that lends a lot to the fact that you like to watch people play games?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk more about that later, because one of my other games I watched a lot more of.
Would you talk about watching your mom play the game? Because that's a story you told me before that I remember.
That was for a different game.
Oh, it was? Where you tell her
She played a lot, too, though. She really liked to play those games with my brother, like Punch-Out and stuff. They would play a lot together. That was my honorable mention of a game that I also played very early on, because that is just, like, 2 buttons. Yeah. So I was pretty good at that right away. And I was even better than my sister was, and I was, like, 4, and she was, like, 9, you know?
Yeah, classic Jasmine.
Like, even now, she's not about that pattern recognition of those early guys. And, I mean, later ones, too, because you even need it later, but... yeah, I've beaten Punch-Out, but I haven't beaten the like, special
like the harder circuit?
Yeah.
Is it different fighters?
It unlocks 4 more at the end if you beat it without dying.
And was Punch-Out a Nintendo game, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was all the Donkey Kongs and Punch-Out were for the Super Nintendo.
So, I didn't have any... I have older siblings, but they're step-siblings, and so I didn't have them in the house in the same capacity that you did. And so I didn't really have any exposure to the early systems. I was unaware that the Nintendo 64 was out at the same time the PlayStation 1 was. I'm, like, kind of relevant for a long time in my life. I thought, oh, Nintendo 64, my babysitter has one, must be old. And, I just didn't understand. I thought it was, like, retro or something. The very first game there's, beside the very first game I remember, like, playing, like, intensely and trying to beat, I think, was Dino Crisis. So a little backstory. For my birthday one year, I don't know how this came about, but my friend Jerron, who was like 2, maybe 3 years older than me, still very young because I was like 5 and he was like 8, decided he was going to give me his PlayStation 1, like an old PlayStation 1 he had, or maybe his actual PlayStation 1, and all of his games. And that's crazy for an 8-year-old to do that. That's like that's like $100 worth of stuff, you know. So I don't know if like his parents punished him or like he didn't seem sad about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. That's like you probably should have told your parents and had them ask.
It wasn't secret. It wasn't a situation. It wasn't like a he gave it to me. Okay, this is yours forever behind his house. Like a kid doing stupid shit. No, it was a known thing.
Do you remember what's his name, Skylar?
Maybe.
From, like, the class above us?
Sure.
Tyler? Skylar.
Okay, probably. I don't know why.
He was kind of bigger. He had kind of a witch nose.
Kind of freckly?
He was freckly.
I remember him.
And he was kind of rude.
Yeah.
He used to ride my bus, and one day he came on. I had like a Game Boy at the time, and one day he came on with like a nicer, newer like Game Boy, or maybe even like a DS. And he was like, "Hey, do you guys want this?" And it was like me and Maddie on the bus too. And I was like, no. I just felt like something was sinister about it, and like does your parents know that you're giving me this? And so I didn't take it, but Maddie did. She was like, yes, I'm definitely gonna take a free DS. And then she was like, and if he asks for it back, I'm not gonna give it back. No, it was
Probably an SP.
It was no, because I had that already.
You had the SP?
And so it was something that I didn't have that was nicer and new. I think it was a DS.
Okay.
And I just remember thinking like, no, this is bad. We shouldn't do that. And she was like, well, I'm fucking doing it.
And what happened?
He was just weird about it. He was like, no. And then he was like talking about his dad, and he was gonna do it to like make him mad or something. But he already had another DS, so it didn't matter. I don't know.
Weird.
It was a weird situation. Anyway, keep going.
So Dino Crisis. So my friend Jerron gave me my first PlayStation 1. I came with a shit ton of games, and most of the games didn't work, or I was too young to understand, or just were stupid. Like there was a pretty bad PlayStation 1 basketball game. But either way, a lot of the games were my first experience with like trying out games myself and stuff like that, because I'd never done that. I'd gone to the arcade with my parents, and I'm trying to think if I had a Game Boy Color, but I don't think I did at that time. But anyway, so my dad and I went, or purchased, I think it might have been in the stack, or rented. I'm not sure the exact process. My parents were classic rent till you own people. They had go to Blockbuster, they'd rent a game, and then they would just keep it forever. Like, we had so many movies like that, and so many games like that. Less games. But it was called Dino Crisis, and it was 2-player, and I think it was like a third-person shooter, and it was very on rails. You know, you would just walk through these areas, and it was basically Jurassic Park, but you'd kill things. And it was pretty cool. It had like a progression system. You'd unlock new guns and stuff like that, and we loved it. I mean, it was great graphics for the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I still have distinct memories of like we'd fight the compies, which are little tiny dinosaurs, and they swarm you, and how hard they were because like we were just not able to shoot them. And we were both terrible at games then. I mean, it was PlayStation 1, and I think I'm trying to remember. I know a certain PS1 controller did have joysticks, but I'm trying to remember if we had the one. I think they didn't. I think this was just the D-pad because they started with and I had a PS1, the one with the little pop top, not the actual PlayStation 1 like console, because then it made a slim version later. And there's a difference. It was a PS1 versus a PlayStation 1, or just a PlayStation. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, but the problem was we didn't have memory cards. We didn't even understand memory cards existed. And so we played it arcade style every single time. We'd start playing, and we'd get to a certain point, and when it has to be done, we would sometimes just try to leave it on, and other times we would just turn it off and say, okay, we're going to restart and see how far we can get. And he didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. I was 5, 6. You know, of course I'd understand that we could go buy a memory card for it. And he probably should have read it and been like, oh, there's no memory card inserted. Do you want to keep playing or something like that? But yeah, my best memory is the furthest we ever got was against this T-Rex, and you were supposed to run from it, basically. We always tried to fight it. And at this point, you get a flame gun, and the flame gun would make a wall of flames. And so you'd shoot it, and then there would be like a wall right in front of you, and it was supposed to like stop him coming at you. And it was just so terrifying, and you just sprint. I think we actually maybe got a little past that to pterodactyls, and you didn't kill him there. He was stalk around the place. Fun game, though, dude. And it was the very first co-op experience me and Mark ever had together.
Oh, it was you and Mark?
Yeah.
This whole time I thought you were talking about you and Jerron.
My dad left when I was 6 months old. So, Jerron?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Mark, my dad.
Weird mention of my dad left me.
Well, I'm just letting you know that. No, I was just letting you know that he wasn't in my life, like, consistently.
I wasn't thinking that he was.
Well, I understand that, but I thought you were clarifying to say, like,
no,
that was Mark. I thought you meant
it
was your, because I had been saying my dad over and over and over.
Yeah,
You look like you had a little glassy-eyed there.
I thought it was you and Jerron.
No, Jerron and I almost never played games like that. He was very bad at sharing. He had a little brother.
No wonder he didn't know any better about memory cards, you know.
Yeah.
But I bet it told you on the screen.
That's what I'm saying.
Memory card.
That's what I was talking about. I just said that.
Oh, man, I am out of it.
Yeah, this looked like, yeah. All right.
I was listening. I got all of the rest of it, probably.
So that was Dino Crisis, and it was fun. What's your next game, Kenya?
Well, I was thinking about how I forgot to mention more about Donkey Kong.
Would you like to talk more about Donkey Kong?
Yeah, a little bit, and then I'll move to my second game. Because just now I was like, oh, well, really I wanted to talk about Donkey Kong Country 3. Because that's my fave of all of them.
Sure.
So I had 1, 2, and 3. 2 is very hard, so I never liked it as a kid. I like it more now, but it's still like...
It's harder than 3?
Oh, yeah. It's probably my
Why?
least favorite, just because, like, I have, like, such a bad, like, nostalgic association
Why is it
for
so
it.
much harder than 3 and 1?
I don't know.
Like sequels tend to be harder sometimes. That makes sense. So it's harder than 1, but why is 3 easier?
I don't know.
Is it mechanically just difficult? Like less...
I don't know. I think it might... I don't know. I think it's widely agreed that it's harder, but...
What's the premise? Because I know in 2 you're DK and Diddy.
So, in number 1, you're Donkey Kong and Diddy, and King K. Rool stole all your bananas. In
number 1?
Yeah.
Oh, number 2, then you're Diddy and...
Dixie.
Dixie.
And Donkey Kong gets kidnapped, and you have to go save them. And then in number 3, something happens with Donkey and Diddy.
So who are you then?
And you're Dixie and Kitty, who I call Fatty, because I didn't know he had an actual name.
So you just decided to
he's like a fat baby monkey.
Weird.
And he's like wearing like a onesie.
So that's kind of interesting, because in the first game, like, Diddy and DK have different feels to them, right? Like different jumps and speeds and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so Dixie and Diddy are relatively similar, right? Except
but
Dixie can fly,
yeah, okay. Or glide.
So then Dixie could still fly in the third one too. And then Baby has a different one.
He's heavier. So there are parts in like what?
That's something
what are you doing? Did
Sorry.
you get whatever
it
was? Okay, that was weird. There are parts where like you need to throw him and then he'll like land really heavy to break stuff.
It's like a weirdly specific mechanic.
Yeah, and like you can carry each other in 2 and 3, and like Dixie carrying him is like really slow. Like,
that's funny.
And sad because he's like really heavy. Anyway, 3 was my favorite because when I was like 8 or 9, I got a DS and I got Donkey Kong Country 3 for it. And it was a little bit different. Like in the first world, you fight this barrel monster called Belcha, and you have to like, he shoots out barrels and then there's bugs in them, and then you have to throw those into his mouth. It's a whole thing. And at the end of it, if you don't make it on the regular version, you just fall into a pit. At the end of this one, there's like chainsaws at the end, like waiting. Yeah, there's like weird like little differences like that. But I got almost all the way through it, and that you talking about like this is the first game that I really tried to beat. I never tried to beat Donkey Kong, but I did try really hard to beat Donkey Kong Country 3.
Did you beat it?
Eventually, yeah, but not on my Game Boy because I ended up losing it. Like on the bus or something, or it got stolen.
Well, I forgot about that. It went portable.
Yeah, it was portable.
That's crazy to think about. Something you had a console for before.
Okay, anyway, sorry. I wanted to let you know that by Donkey Kong Country, really I meant Donkey Kong Country 3. Even though I played a lot of Donkey Kong Country normal.
I appreciate how it took almost my entire story of you heavily thinking about something else.
I was just
I can tell too. I wanted to stop and say, "Hey, are you listening?" Because you had the Jasmine look of, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, okay, yeah."
Yeah.
So, would you like to talk about your next game? So
yes. Okay. I'm gonna. Well, okay, never mind. So my next game is Banjo-Kazooie.
Nice. Really, really staying with that Rare family, huh?
I am. Yeah, Rare had a golden age. But yeah, Banjo-Kazooie.
That's not Tui?
No, I didn't even know Tui exists until college. I did not know that was a thing. And I was like, what? There's more?
That's crazy. I thought you played Banjo-Tooie as a kid.
No. And I didn't even really play Banjo-Kazooie as a kid. So let me explain. We got a Nintendo 64. My brother loved to play Banjo-Kazooie. And he also, at the same time, we had Mario 64 and like a couple other games. But those are the 2 I remember the most. And I remember like being... So my dad had this weird thing about we were not allowed to play video games on our living room TV because it was always the biggest TV, and he didn't want to ruin it. That's what he said, but I really think it was that like he wouldn't have to kick us off of it if he came home and wanted to watch something.
That feels like a classic old person thing,
right?
For the first one, like, oh, I don't want you to break it. Well, what about me doing this? It's gonna break it.
And we would always like. Eventually, we would start like sneaking out and like putting our stuff in that TV, you know.
My parents were like that with because there was a period in time my parents stopped paying for cable and they just got bunny ears. And this is back like in high school and I had a smartphone and I'd hang out with them, watch TV, and they'd always say like, "Oh, turn your data off. It's making the signal bad." And I was like, "No, it's got nothing to do with it." And it seemed like they'd have me turn it off and then it would get a little bit better, but I don't think it was affecting it really. And it was super annoying because they were just convinced, it's your phone, you're in here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, it's not related at all.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we had the 64 in my parents' bedroom on their TV. And,
all you guys sitting on the bed?
So we were all sitting on the bed, and we were just, like, chilling out one, like, weekend morning. And my brother just looks around, and he was like, I beat it. I beat Mario. I'm gonna go get Peach's cake. And I was like, what? She's giving you cake? And I was like really into the idea that we were about to have some cake, but I didn't get what he was saying. But anyway, he would play Banjo-Kazooie a lot, and I remember him beating that one too, but he was just like so surprised that he had beat this game.
That was his first time doing it.
Yeah, it was. And I just really loved Banjo-Kazooie. I don't know why. It was like my best game to watch, and that's all I did was watch. I never played Banjo-Kazooie. But I consider it one of my first video games still, just because I was like so into it.
I'm listening, and you basically experienced it fully, even if you weren't actually playing it.
Yeah, I did.
Did it look like I wasn't listening?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You were spaced out. I poked you. Anyway, and there are like specific times. I know I tried to play it. Mm-hmm. There's so many controls for a little 5-year-old's mind.
3D platformers are a huge step up from like DK.
Yeah.
Like complexity.
But I remember, like, whenever my brother wasn't there and it was just me and my mom, I would ask her to play, and I would get mad because she wouldn't do it right, but I would only be able to explain to her what they looked like they were doing, not the actual controls of how to make them do that. And I was like, no, you need to sit on the ground really hard, because I didn't know ground pound.
That's so funny.
And I was like, you need to sit, Mom! And you're not doing it right. And she was just getting so mad because she doesn't know what she's doing too, and it like she would choose my brother's save file because she didn't like know any better, and so it wouldn't like reteach you. Yeah,
that's so funny.
Yeah, so that was it. I did play Banjo-Kazooie several times later on. Like I've played it probably 4 or 5 times by now. But
did we ever beat Tui?
No, we stopped playing Tui for some reason. I don't remember.
Let's take crack at it again. Hey, we'll play it on the show.
It's fun.
So, my next game is kind of a dual game.
Okay.
But it's the same basic thing. Sly Cooper and equally Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, okay.
They're very similar, which is why I'm putting them together. They are. I mean, basically, it's a 3D platformer where you go to hub worlds and you fight bosses, and
I just feel like
Crash Bandicoot's a lot simpler than Sly.
Yeah, more linear.
It is. I mean, it's definitely because you go to a certain stage and you're just on that stage. Yeah. Sly does that too.
Yeah, but it feels like you have more freedom.
The difference is really that in Sly, there's remember you played Sly 2. Don't let them. You started playing Sly 2. Don't let them mix because they can get kind of confusing. Well, I'm just saying, like they blur together for me a lot. But for Sly, you do have a whole world where you can explore, and there's enemies, and you have to go and actually get there. Yeah. For Crash, you're just in this room where it's called Warped, because I'm talking about Crash 3, where you can go through time, and you just go to a different area, and each area would have a portal you can go through. But it wasn't like this whole hub world. But yeah, it was very linear. It was an older game. So Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped was for the PS1. Sorry. And that was the very first game I ever played with my siblings that I can remember. Jerron also got that game for me. Not for me, but we had that game. Maybe I got it from him. I think that was in the disc pile actually. And so we played that game all the time. Me, Jessica, and Rebecca, we just go and go and go. It's to the point where my parents had to like have us figure out timing. Like we each had to take turns because it was bad. We got in huge arguments, and we originally had it set up based on death. It's like you get 2 or maybe 3 deaths per turn, and it became clear that some of us weren't as good as the rest of us. Me and Jessica were pretty good. I think Jessica was the best. I was a little bit less good than Jessica, and Rebecca was much worse than us, and she would die fucking quickly. And, like the early levels not so much, but we get to like the sand level and shit, and she would just die, and she was like, this is stupid, this isn't fair, I'm playing for like a minute. And we were like, shoot, Becca, it's the rules. And we'd be super careful in our turns, like stretch them out to like 10 minutes, and she would so eventually I'm sure she went to my dad and was like, listen, this is screwed up. So we had, I think,
and it probably became like kind of like a self-fulfilling thing for her, where it was like, well, I'm gonna die sooner than everyone
definitely.
else.
And she was probably anxious about dying. Yeah, exactly. It definitely had an element of that. So we eventually switched over to time, and I think we found a sweet spot of like 20 minutes per turn, because half an hour was too long. And we also had these like loopholes, like, well, if I'm about to finish the level, I get to finish, or if I just finish the level, I get to go to the next one. Jessica especially was very bossy then, so she was always like working in some shit where she can go longer. But yeah, so Crash was one of the very first games that I ever really played so intensely. Sly also, but I'm not going to go so much into Sly because you've played it with me and because it's similar. But the special thing about Crash was it was the first game I ever beat by myself. Oh. So I went to my friend Jerron's house, obviously, and my sisters obviously weren't visiting, and I played Crash with him too. And we just played and played and played, and it was like 2 a.m, and he fell asleep. And I normally went to sleep, and I just kept playing. It was also the very first time I ever pulled an all-nighter. And so I kept playing and kept playing and kept playing. And I remember his dad getting up for work because he worked at General Electric, so he got up really early to go to work. And he came downstairs at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning. He was like, Elliot, did you just get up? And I was like, no, I'm still playing. And he was like, you need to go to bed. What are you doing? And I was like, okay, I'm going to bed soon. And then the more of the room, I just kept playing. And I finally remember I beat the boss. And I don't even really remember what the boss is right now. I think it's like I don't know. I remember there being lightning or something. But I beat it. And I remember like going home that day and falling asleep and like sleeping for like 4 hours during the day and being just so proud of myself. And then I remember going back to John's house that evening or that next day and being like, hey, guess what? While you were sleeping, I beat it. Because like, he didn't beat it either. Like, neither of us could. And that was the thing. I felt so cool because he was older than me by a couple years and I was still able to pull it off. And yeah, that was my very first game I ever beat.
I can't even think of the first game I ever beat.
Do you think it was something you did in college?
Yeah. Well, so we were talking about this before we started the podcast because Elliot wanted to like stretch our favorite games of our childhood to like later in our like adolescence, you know.
Because I played a lot of important games.
And I don't have that. Like I basically stopped playing games and stopped like receiving games to play in like middle school. And so like from middle school till like college, I basically wasn't playing games. But I would watch like Let's Plays and stuff, but I just never like really thought like I could do research and then go buy those. I don't know. But I don't even know if I beat anything as a kid.
Maybe you've never beat anything ever.
Maybe. Well, I know I've beat stuff since then, but
just messing with you.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so my last final game. Probably the most important game as far as... So this is one of the games that I kept getting throughout my life, I guess.
What you kept getting?
Like, kept receiving throughout, like, high school and playing throughout high school and stuff, like, through middle school and high school, was The Sims.
I would think some people would argue that The Sims isn't even a game.
It's definitely a game.
It's, like, different, though.
And it's definitely a video game.
Yeah, it's obviously... I mean, sure. Keep going. I'm not going to get
into
that. It's
both of those.
But there's a certain level of, like, like almost in its current incarnation, it feels less gamey than the original ones did.
Really?
At least in my experience.
I would say exactly the opposite.
Keep going. Because I think some people would argue it's a simulator.
It is, but that's a game.
It's different.
But it's still a game.
Sure, but we don't have to get into game theory right now, but it is not game theory, but it's different. Well, keep going. I'm not saying I believe that. I don't
believe that.
We'll look it up.
Even at all. But whatever. Screw you guys and Elliot for derailing me. Yeah, so I started playing The Sims when I was 6,
Was it the first Sims?
Sims 1. And we, like, received it from my uncle, I think, when he was, like, going to college or something like that. And he was, like, playing it a lot, and we would go and play it whenever we visited my grandma. And, eventually he gave it to us, and we were like, what? Really? And then we would, like, play it all the time. And eventually my siblings, like, stopped playing it as much as me, and I would just, like, keep playing. And in The Sims 1, it was, like, very primitive, and, like, it looks terrible now, and, like, I don't think I could go back and play it. And, like even, like, having sex and stuff wasn't a thing, I don't think. It was, like you couldn't woohoo, or if you, like, because I know when you had a baby... I think you could actually, but when you had a baby, it was just like you got your friendship meter high enough, and then it would say, you guys are getting along quite well. Would you like a baby? And then you would get this baby, and then it would just, like, sit in this bassinet, like, looking weird, and, like, you couldn't even see it, and then you would have to, like, interact with it for, like, so many days, and then eventually it would become a child just all of a sudden. I don't know. And, yeah, and I hated playing with my siblings because we would always, like, make our own household, and then they would eventually kill me off because they didn't want to play with my character anymore. They were like, Kenny is bad at taking care of herself. Let's just drown her. And they would always kill me every single time, no matter what. Yeah, but it's funny now. And then eventually I would just, like, play that all the time, and me and one of my friends, Juliana, growing up, would play it all the time. Every single time we visited each other, I brought, like, mine so that we could download it onto her computer as well, and then I would just, like, bring it back and forth. And then we found out in the back of The Sims, like, one of the Sims expansions is a full CD where you had to download the trailer for Sims 2, and I would put it in, and I downloaded it, and I was like, what does it mean, Sims 2? And then...
Your first exposure to sequels.
Yeah, and it was just so weird thinking about it now. Like, now I just, like, pop on a video, like, on YouTube. It takes, like, less than 2 seconds. I had to take a whole CD, download it, and then watch it. No, it was like, you had to download it. You did. You did. I promise.
You also
like
didn't know what a sequel was at the time.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, well, I knew what sequels were. I just didn't realize that.
Conceptualize that Sims could have one.
Yeah. And so we watched it, and it looked so much better. I was like, they're like real life people.
Yeah, Sims 2 was a really big jump,
like,
though.
Oh my god. And I was like, there's a whole nother one. And it was coming out like a month later.
Perfect
and
timing.
I was like, shit, I gotta tell my dad about this so he can buy me it. And then he did. And then we did the same thing where we would download it on both of our computers. But I think that Juliana actually got it before me, and I was really mad about it. And I was like, why? We had a system. What the fuck? And she was like, yeah, but I want to play when you're not here. And I was like, really? Oh, you're just playing when I'm not there. Like, as if I never did that, which I'm sure I did.
Yeah, that's a classic young Kenya move. Yeah. How dare you do the thing that
I
do?
was so rude as a kid. I'm bad at sharing now.
Mm-hmm.
I was so much worse at sharing then. And it was weird because I really wanted to play with her, and I loved, like, taking turns and stuff. And we didn't even, like,
Did
time it.
you love taking turns, though?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because we were usually very, like able to, like, comment and, like have agency even if we weren't playing. We would be like, oh, you like, don't you think it would look better if she was wearing this? Like, that was our favorite part, dressing up all the people and, like, naming them and stuff. And we would, like, be like, no, this one's rude, so she's gonna only be mean to people. And, like, I don't know. It was really fun. And it was just, like, fun. And we'd be like, okay, well, can I have a turn now? And I think she played a lot more than me. I just, like, tend to take the back seat, I think, in a lot of ways. And so I would just get really mad. And I remember one time she was visiting me at my house, and the computer was in my parents' room, and we were, like, staying up really late, and my parents stay up late anyway, and my mom was, like, watching us play Sims, and I was just getting furious with Julianne because she would not listen to me, and she would not let me have a turn. And I was like, listen, this is my house. You don't have to sleep here. I'm not letting you use the phone to call your mom. You're out on the street tonight, Julie. And I was like, it's winter.
You're going to die.
Yeah. And she was like, no, I just want to play. And my mom was like, hey, be nice. Juliana, be nice. Because everyone was being rude to each other.
So that whole thing about backseat playing.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I was an only child for a lot of my life. Like, I consider myself kind of an only child still, even though, again, I have siblings and we play games together. They only visited over the summers, and sometimes only for a month at a time. So the majority of my life was spent by myself. And I had weird experiences with playing by myself, or playing with someone else, like second player, or sitting off screen like you were, and then having someone else do that. So my friend Trevor, the Trevors, the original, he had a sibling who was a year younger than him. And he had very bad first player syndrome at his house. He would always have to be first player, and his parents almost exclusively only bought co-op games so they could. They didn't have to share because it was just bad. They were not good at shaking turns. But whenever he'd be at my house, he would every time for years never play. He would just sit behind me and watch. And it was weird. And I would always say, like, consistently, do you want to play? Do you want to play? Do you want to play? And he was like, no, I'm good watching. So it was bizarre for me.
Is it because he didn't have, like, the same games?
No, we had the same systems growing up. He had tons of games. I have no idea why. And I mean, he and I asked him, and his thing is, I just liked watching, you know. And so that was weird. But I never really understood that. And so I had a similar experience on the other foot, kind of, with Jerron, because I go to his house all the time, and he had a little brother much younger than him, and his little brother was always forced to play with him. But it wasn't like with Caleb and Trevor; they were both equal in skill because they were only a year apart. Where when they both played, it was, if they ever had to take turns, it was like okay, I recognize that you're making progress in here, you know. With Jerron, Jalen was like a baby. Like there was times when he'd hang out and Jalen would still be in diapers, and so he would play the games, and it would just be like watching somebody fuck around. And he was a kid; he was a very young child.
Yeah.
So it was very stressful for him. So he would never share with me. Like, I had to say, Jerron, let me play. Jerron, let me play. Jerron, let me play. And like, he played Grand Theft Auto. He played for like 3 hours, and I played for like 10 minutes. And I remember sitting there on his PC, and he would play Age of Vampires. What he meant was Age of Empires, but he didn't enunciate, and I thought it was Age of Vampires. And you'd start out building like medieval style buildings, like, all right, vampires, and then I'd see the fog of the world because it was all black, and I'd think, all right, vampires, you know. And I'd always ask him, when are the vampires coming in? He's like, and he just like wouldn't answer me, and that happened a lot. And then he also played Roller Coaster Tycoon, and that was my first exposure to games like that. And I remember eventually wanting to get Roller Coaster Tycoon and Age of Vampires, and not being able to find the second one. Being like, what? And then also later in my years in like middle school and high school, which isn't super important. I'm not gonna talk about games I played. But my brother moved in with us, and he moved into our extra guest room, and he made it his cave. And I'd come in there and play games with him, and he would always talk about let's play together, but he would never play. He just wanted me to watch him play. And my parents tell me, Mark specifically told me that when Chris was a kid, he always had trouble sharing. He would sit there and say, "Dad, let's play games together," and then he would just never give him a turn. Well, I'm teaching you how, or he'd take the controller right out of his hand. And so that's when I taught Mark how to play games. When he played Skyrim for the first time, he was just like blown away by how much I was just letting him play, because it was his game, you know. Like I would help him get through rough parts, but otherwise I would just let him play for hours on end, and he was just like, "Elliot, it's crazy, you're so nice." I'm like, "I'm not nice, this is just how you take a turn," you know.
Yeah.
What the hell? And so I had the same experience with my brother, and I saw a lot of games that I would have never seen before, like Devil May Cry, God of War, and stuff like that. He was into those 3D platformy, difficult, grindy games. So
I think I have a lot of like kind of the attitude almost of being an only child, like the classic like bad at sharing kind of thing, because like I never had to share, you know, or I was always made to like because my siblings were just so much older than me that it, like anything that was mine was almost always exclusively mine, because they were over that stage of their life, you know.
So that's interesting, because I had
not always though, like I clearly had to share, but
like at Sims, you guys share.
Sims, but also like Barbies and like just like anything that was I had growing up.
So that's interesting, because I've always believed that me being mostly an only child led me to want to share more, because I felt very lonely in my childhood a lot. Like I hung with my parents when I was a kid, and I just, you know, until I had friends consistently, I was bored kind of a lot of time. Not that I wasn't entertained. My parents didn't make a lot of choices to help me be entertained or whatever, but I just remember when I'd hang out with somebody, I'd want them to experience things I was experiencing. I'm big on, you try this, do you want to play? And I think that was because I was an only child. You know what I mean? I really yearned for this experience, and I did whatever I could to make sure that people were having a good time when I was there. So, my last game, because we're on our last games, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did mine.
Sorry, I segued a bit there, but I want to talk about that experience. So my last game, which is really a series, is Pokemon. I got a Game Boy Color when I was some sort of age, and the first game I got was Blue version, so I must have been like 4 or 5 when I had a Game Boy Color, or 6, something like that. Because
really,
yeah, I mean,
4?
All the kids, or 5, no, probably not 4, probably 5 or 6 or 7, one of the two. Because it was before it was before elementary school had started, before kindergarten, so I must have been 5.
Yeah.
And it was at my babysitter Tammy's. We'd all take them there, and
it's weird to me that 5 is like, oh, okay, that's normal, but like 4 is like, no.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's your sketch, not mine.
Even though I was playing games at 4.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I owned my own thing at that point. I had my own Game Boy Color and stuff like that. But yeah, and I had a purple Game Boy Color, and I would go and we'd go to my babysitters, and we'd all play Pokemon. And I had Blue version, and I don't remember interacting with Blue version all that much. I'm pretty sure I never even beat all the gym leaders. A huge part of that was. Well, okay, first of all, there was this other kid named Evan. He was an older kid, and, you know, there was very hierarchy at a babysitter. And we all, she put us all in the basement. It was a very nice finished basement. We played DK60, or Donkey Kong 64 for the first time there, too. But she put us all in the basement, and we would all kind of just rule ourselves, basically, and then she'd yell if it got too loud. That was the only interaction we really had. And she was a good babysitter, but still, it was very much like, the kids rule down here. And he would sit there and he'd hold our Game Boys, and then he'd say, okay, when my fingers touch, I'm going to delete your save. But, like, the understanding was not he's going to go in our game and delete our save. It was just that his fingers would touch and it would happen. And being 4 and 5-year-olds, we were, every single time we did it, we're just, like, blown away. And he would sit there and have us tortured, like, they're about to touch. All right, not this time. It was so, I don't know, it was so weird. But what really happened is Trevor had a little brother. And the 4 to 5 is a big difference in age. Mm-hmm. And so Caleb was... I don't think he had his own Game Boy then, and he wanted to know if he could play mine. And I was like, sure, I don't care. I was a good sharer, as I've already stated. And he rewrote over my save, and he saved after that. And so I had like a Blastoise and a Pidgeotto, and it was like, you know, it was my very first Pokemon grind, and I was so crushed about that. And I didn't play again for like years. I didn't, you know, the amount of time I'd put in was more than I'd ever put in doing anything in my entire life. So I was just like, okay, it's gone. Game's gone, whatever. And I was mad every time I saw him until we were like 12. I would say, like, hey, you remember when you did my blue save? And like, it was more joking later on. I think once we were like in middle school, and he was like, hey, that annoys me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not really holding against you. He's like, okay, but you say it every time you see me. And I was like, oh. Caleb did not like me for a long period of time. I don't know what the deal was. I think it was probably because I hung out with Trevor so much, and he felt like I was kind of stealing his friend.
Well, and probably because you're shitting on him.
But I mean, that was like a very like, hey, how's it going? You know, okay, whatever, and we'd move on. It wasn't something I like did every single like for the entire time we were hanging out. He just didn't like me for a long period of time, even in high school. And then I think we eventually just started hanging out more. Like I at Trevor's house more, and we had a better friendship. But yeah, and so I didn't play another Pokemon game until Crystal version, and Trevor and Caleb had Gold and Silver, and that was the thing. They were perfect because they each had a Game Boy, and they'd each get the version specific one. And I got Crystal version, and I remember them being pretty pissy about that because it was like the step up, and you know those versions came out a couple months afterwards, and I think they might have eventually got it, but they were trying to tell their parents, and the parents like, no, you just got a game 3 months ago, and you're still playing it all the time, and there's no reason. Like it's just a slightly upgraded version. It's pointless basically. And Crystal version was such a cool experience for me because it was like the very first time I had ever had a completely sole single player experience. I couldn't really show my parents what's happening in the game. I'd show them and they'd be like, cool, it's a tiny little screen with pixels. I can't see what's happening. So I'm not interested in what you're doing basically. And like I could play with my friends too. There was link cables, which was a whole thing in itself, like trading and stuff. But it was just something, it was the only thing I'd played for long periods of time, you know, and if it was difficult, it was the first time I ever got back up and really started throwing myself at it. You know, I was training my Pokemon, and it was just such an immersive experience. I mean, I 100% was in the Crystal version. And the first time I saw Legendary, remember, I didn't see any commercials. I only knew there was just a Pokemon sticker on the front of this Crystal version game. Who could Suicune be? What's going on here? And I saw it. I was like, holy shit, it's the guy from the box. What's happening? And so that was just such a cool experience for me. And of course, I had a Game Boy Color, which didn't have lights, and I played on long car trips. So my parents had bought these accessories where you'd have a big magnifying glass that went over it, and then there was a light on it too. And so I'd sit there in the back of the car with this thing like glowing in my face. And oh my god, the battery struggle. We never had enough AA's. I don't know what the deal was, but it was always like, you know, and it was just awful when I was done because I went from being completely immersed in reading and engaged and stuff like that to just nothing. And I remember like that was the worst part of the car trips when nothing would happen. Which is probably why I like playing games in the car so much these days. And like,
you just never played car games?
We play car games all the time. When my sister and stuff were there, we'd do trivia and stuff like that. We did all that stuff. It was just I always want to play my Game Boy instead. So
I went on a lot of long car trips, like minimum 18 hours of car trips, at least once a year, usually more.
Yeah.
I didn't have a Game Boy. I just had to sit there. And I didn't have, like, kid books. I just had to sit there.
See, that's awful. We had those brain games things. And, like,
yeah, we had, like, some, like, little trivia books and stuff. And, like, eventually I got into reading, so I liked doing that. But
people are, like, so shitty about, like, oh, you know, kids can't be without their phones or their Game Boys for a while. But it's also not natural to make someone sit in one spot for 12 hours doing nothing. You know, that's also not good for humans.
Well, I mean, we would just play a lot of road games.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I'm sure you guys were just silent. And it was always funny because my mom always had like a very love-hate relationship with games. Like she'd see that I was completely entrenched in this thing, you know what I mean? Like, Elliot, listen, Elliot. And I'd look up finally like, what? Yeah, I'd freak out when my batteries would die and stuff like that. But she also, I don't know, it was very weird. Which I think is why she sort of has that whole thing with Mark playing games now. She has those same feelings, like, oh, it's addictive. Her and Lana would always say, oh, they have an addictive chip in there, as if that effect. I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, my favorite game I ever played, Pokemon game, series, is still Pokemon Sapphire. And I was much older than I think I was probably like in 5th or 6th grade. I don't remember exactly.
Much older.
I was supposed to be 5. Yeah, I was 5 years older. That's much older, dude. That's light years in childhood. Yeah, it was Pokemon Crystal or Sapphire. I mean, and I just remember as the graphics were much better. They were color at that point. And yeah, and it was just.
I only ever had the color DS.
Yeah.
And I remember Juliana like dug up like a really old, or not DS, Game Boy. Dug up her like original Game Boy, and I was like, "You've had this all along?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Why don't we ever play it?" And she was like, "It's kind of bad." And then we played some of it, and she had like Scooby Doo and stuff, and I was like, "Why is there no light?" I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean that was a big thing too. When I got Sapphire, I had the SP, and there was a backlight on it, and I was like, I don't need this fucking contraption anymore. Oh my god, this is amazing. And the Game Boy Color had color, but it wasn't really color. It was like 5 colors. You know, it was shit. It was.
No, I had SP.
SP, yeah.
Did I say color?
You said not black and white, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, SP was great. And I remember being old enough to appreciate.
I had a blue one. It was like pearly blue.
Did you? Mm-hmm. Those were cool. They had so many different colors and stuff. I had a silver one, and I remember being able to appreciate for the first time because like the Game Boy Color was like whatever it was a system, and I was young. It was this fat body thing. I always loved that. And then the Advance came out. And the Advance was like bad. Like comparatively, it was like kind of cool, whatever, but it had a pretty bad battery life, and it like didn't have that crazy of a jump thing. And then a couple years later, they came out with the SP, and I remember thinking, this is the same size as a Game Boy when it's open. You can close it, and it becomes a square. This thing's lighter. It has a light. I remember like being able to realize for the first time, man, this is a much better improvement in technology. You know.
I didn't have that because I never had the originals, you know.
Yeah, so you didn't really ever. Yeah.
I loved my Game Boy though. After I got that, I took it everywhere with me, literally everywhere, and I would always play it.
They're great.
And then I lost like half my games.
Why? What happened?
I had like a case for it where because you were saying like it folded up into a square, so the whole bottom part of the case was for me to just slide it in, and the whole top part was for me to put games. Mm-hmm. And I like took it out of my case on a bus, like on the way to like a softball game or something. And I left it in the bus, and then I came back. I didn't remember which seat I was in, and I couldn't find it. And then I even, like, was searching around the whole bus. I couldn't find it. Someone took it.
That's awful. That's sad. Some kid got a great score that day,
yeah,
though.
But I didn't also want to tell my dad that I had lost my games. So I just didn't, and I was, like, stuck with, like, only Mario Kart for, like, a really long time. I never got the games
At that age,
back.
your dad had already instilled a fear in you.
Yeah.
Right?
Because it was money he spent on it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done too. I think that's mostly everything. There was something I wanted to honor. You know, it was just that. Never mind. It was just the Age of Empires and Roller Coaster Tycoon thing I wanted to mention.
Vampires.
Age of Vampires, yeah.
Okay, well, check us out on YouTube under DorkDate.
You're probably watching it here.
We have, or SoundCloud if you want to watch it on...
Listen to it.
Or, yeah, listen to it only. We got Let's Plays on YouTube.
We got a bunch of other podcasts.
Mm-hmm. I think this is like our 9th or 10th one.
Yeah, I think it's 11th actually. So we just recorded a podcast that got completely deleted. We'll maybe record it, so we're not going to spoil that, but you'll see. We did a podcast on our pets. We've been doing a sort of kind of a series of like our lives podcasts. Usually we do reviews and style stuff, so if you like this style, let us know. If you like the other style.
I want to do, probably this is a bad place to bring it up to you, but sure. I want to do maybe one, because we just saw Thor, and then we're about to go see
Justice League, like DC Marvel?
No.
Oh.
Just like
superhero movies?
Like, yeah. Just like maybe a review of like the last couple that have come out.
Or like our favorites. Sure, yeah, anyway.
Or it makes more sense to probably do DC Marvel, I guess, because I didn't really think about it.
So a way to tie this in is that we're a new YouTube channel. So if you guys like stuff or want to hear about more stuff, let us know and we'll do it.
Yeah.
We record every day, or we upload every day of the week, Monday through Friday. On Saturday we have podcasts.
Yep.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you hate this.
Yeah, let us know what your first video games were.
Yeah, dude. And we also play games all the time these days. So if you really want.
For reference, we were both born in '94.
Yeah.
So floppy disk game is kind of out of the question, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, I made floppy disk growing up, but not games.
Can we appreciate how my first game was on a floppy disk and I'm a millennial?
I remember coming to school and like in elementary school we had the computer lab for the first time and we had to bring floppy disks in. Like we had to buy them and that was great because that was still like 2004.
I never even remember using them, but they were on like the class required list, like that and like colored pencils.
I remember using them once. And I think I remember also being told or actually doing the fact that you pull the thing side and it like erases your disk.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway. I don't remember that.
So that was our trip down memory lane.
Floppy disk.
Catch you guys later.